Welcome to the Boomer Technician channel. Today, we're in the garage, but the Soul Survivor doesn't require any preparation at all. It finished the last trip flawlessly with no problems at all. So we've got a bunch of stuff to see in our next state, Iowa, where we're going to see not one, but two car shows. And I'm actually going out there to visit with some friends. So rather than spending any more time in the garage, let's head out. Okay, we're here at the Valley Classic in West Des Moines, Iowa. It's an event put on by the Valley Church here. And why am I here? Well, I got a buddy who lives in West Des Moines, and he said it was a good show and to come check it out. And unfortunately, it rained this morning, so the attendance or the turnout hasn't been what they'd like. But overall, looks like a pretty good show. The church who sponsors the event has a barbecue lunch for everybody, both folks who brought their cars and the folks coming to see the cars. That's what the tent is in the background there. It's a very family-friendly event. They've got a lot of activities for the kids who show up. And as you can see, lots of great cars here in West Des Moines. It kind of amuses me. My buddy who lives out there, the guy I went out to visit, has been in Des Moines since he graduated high school, and he thinks it's just a fantastic town. And every time I come out, he gives me Mr. Civic Pride. He drives around town pointing out the various exciting things that are going on there in Des Moines. So I always enjoy coming out to visit him. As you can see from our walk around here, there's not any kind of rhyme or reason to the cars. You'll see a rat rod right next to a bright, shiny hot rod, and 50s cars next to 60s cars, next to newer cars. It's just a car show for run what you brung. And I said earlier, we're going to take a look at two car shows this weekend. This is the Saturday show. And then after this, we'll see some cars from a Sunday show that was in a separate town called Indianola. And you'll see when we get there, it was a kind of a small town show, a couple miles outside of the Des Moines area. And all the cars were lined up on the main street there. There were a few duplicates. Some of the folks from this show also showed up there. It was a Main Street show in a small town. A lot of similar cars, but a different vibe. Sunday proved to be a pretty hot day, so we didn't spend a lot of time in Indianola. But we had fun at both shows. It's always great to get together with friends and go to a car show. And, a lot of times I'm doing these car shows by myself. So it was nice to have a friend along to check out the cars and talk about what we're looking at. Oh, I think we've got some duplicates here. That's the second time we walked past that Dodge Charger. And there's the Soul Survivor. It's about 12 hours, maybe 14 hours to Des Moines out of Denver, but the Soul Survivor performed perfectly. We didn't have any issues getting out there. I was concerned about the AC holding up with the July heat we were dealing with. Last year, it leaked down on me a couple of times, but it seems I finally got it sealed up to the point where it's performing reliably. It's held a charge now for about 5 months, so I think we finally got it pretty well figured out. So to figure out the rest of this car show, we're going to do a little bit more walking down the aisles here, but then we're going to look at some specific cars. Not this Jaguar XKE, although I probably should have spent a little time on it. It looked like it was a very nice car. We're going to look at a couple of interesting interiors here, starting with this Mercury Cougar. It's an XR7 car, and when we look at the dash, Mercury did a really good job of distinguishing it from the Mustang, followed by this Charger, which has this really cool center console through the middle of the interior. And then we've got a Malibu, a very plain car with a very plain interior. And to contrast that, we've got an earlier Chevy 210 wagon, which has a pretty fancy interior considering how plain the outside of the car was. And here we have a Jeep forward control pickup, an interesting rig. This is a 150. I think it also came as a 170, which was the wheelbase. And then I took a picture of this BMW clown shoe because I really liked the paint color. It really stood out. And here's another car that stands out. This was the last year of the true Packards. I talked earlier about the crowd and the community. The church did some really interesting things. They had a fella coming around in the crowd as Waldo, handing out candy to the kids, and he was really popular. Lots of folks were looking around for him, and the kids came running up when they saw him, and he was nice enough to wave at us here. Hello, Waldo. So to wrap up the Des Moines show, we'll do a couple quick hits here. A 61 Pontiac, a 69 Mustang, and a Corvette we'll wave goodbye to as we go to the show in Indianola on Sunday. This was a Main Street show around the courthouse block, and lots of great cars, as we'll see looking down this row. But you know, Indianola is farm country, so they also had a whole row of pickups that were nicely turned out, and of course, very popular in the farm country. And here's a little bit different take on a pickup, a Dodge Charger. And then we've got our 70 Mustang with a 351 Cleveland under the hood. A Monte Carlo, first generation, followed by a Pontiac GT37. And we'll wrap up Indianola with this Chevy Malibu and a very nice Buick Skylark with a 4-speed and a big 455 under hood. Since we are in Iowa, it's important to bring the Soul Survivor over to Knoxville, the sprint car capital of the world. We've got the Hall of Fame Museum, a number of racing trailers rolling past us, headed for the track for the events this evening. So here's the main entrance to the building, and my good buddy Rhino in the parking lot. Rhino, turn around and give me a wave. Very good. Well, let's take a walk down the line here and see if we pick up on anything interesting. I believe this is a mix of sprints and midgets. And unfortunately, don't really know the drivers' names all that well. But these cars are all very authentic. I'm sure they've all performed on the racetrack. Well, I'll be honest, I don't know a whole lot about the sprint car scene, but I do know the early cars were a lot prettier than the new ones. This is a much later car, and good grief, there's a lot of square edges on it. It lost all the grace of that early car streamlining. The museum's under the stadium at the track, so it's kind of a tight space, but they've done some great things with it. Here we've got a example of the evolution of the sprint car with the earliest models off to the left and the latest to the right. And even the latest car really isn't that new a car. It was probably from the 70s. The museum space is a little tight, but they've got lots of cars in here and lots of things on exhibit on the wall. I love a museum that puts together a diorama. This is an actual sprint car from the 20s put together by a guy by the name of Jim Gerber. So they tried to replicate his shop here at the museum and did a pretty good job. Well, here's another diorama. This one is for a team called Bob Trossel Racing. Not a name I'm familiar with, but judging by those trophies on the wall, it was a very successful team. So these cars are pretty simple. We've got an engine here. We've got a differential you can see tucked in right behind the driver there, and then we've got the driver sitting in the middle, straddling the driveline. They've got a lever there for what they call an in and out box, which engages and disengages the driveline, and they basically push start the car and go, go, go without any stopping at all. Well, here's a Curtis Craft Midget, which is a storied name in sprint car racing. This is an early car right after World War II, because rather than running a Chevy V8, we got a V8 in there that has 3 pipes coming off the head. You can't see them super clearly here, but what we're looking at there is a Ford V8. Well, here's a better shot of a Ford flathead V8. You can see the 8 spark plugs across the top of the flathead, and then on the bottom we've got 3 exhaust outlets because the center 2 are Siamesed. Not a very efficient approach, but it was one of the more powerful engines of its day, and it was certainly very popular in racing circles. Well, here's a Champ car from the 50s, and it's powered by an Offie 4. And that's unfortunate because that's a very pretty engine, but the bodywork covers it up here. Hopefully I can find a nice picture from the internet and insert an overlay so you can get a look at that fantastic motor. Wanted to take a picture of this car. It's really pretty, but it was also driven by a driver we all know, Mario Andretti. Well, it's an orange Gilmer car with 14 on the tails. Pretty sure A.J. Foyt piloted this at some point. The back of the museum forms a portion of the rear straightaway of the Knoxville track. And above the museum, you'll find the National Sprint Car Hall of Fame, which commemorates the greats of the past and the present. Well, this is what you do for fun when you drive a 50-year-old car. I stop for gas, and it's fuel starved. The high pressure pump that's mounted in the engine bay is designed to work in a fuel tank, so it gets a little warm on the road, and when it heat soaks at the gas station, it stops working. So we're going to pour cold water on top of it, a little ice water, and with any luck, she'll fire back up. All right, we're looking good. I didn't have any real problems on this trip. We did have a little bit of an overheating issue on the fuel pump. It's an aftermarket fuel pump I installed. So I'm gonna have to figure out a little bit of re-engineering, find a way to cool that more effectively in the middle of the summer. But I've been driving that fuel pump for about 10 years now, and this is the first time we've stressed it with heat. So I don't think it's a fuel pump problem. I think it's a heat problem. But I got a couple ideas on how to address it. But in the meanwhile, we're going to get ready for our next road trip. And until then, no matter where you go, there you are.